Welcome to our video lesson on comparing and ordering integers. To start, we're going to do a little warm-up. When you think about, let's think about some situations. The first one is temperature. Temperature. Which temperature is colder, 20 degrees Celsius or 5 degrees Celsius? Hopefully you've all said that 5 degrees Celsius is colder than 20 degrees Celsius. All right, let's look at the next one. Which is colder, negative 3 degrees Celsius or 3 degrees Celsius? Negative 3 degrees Celsius is colder than 3 degrees Celsius. All right, the last one. Which is colder, negative 50 degrees Celsius or negative 2 degrees Celsius? Negative 50 degrees Celsius is a lot colder than negative 2 degrees Celsius. The next situation is money. How much money would you rather have in your bank account? Would you rather have $10 or $20? Well, I'd rather have $20 because it's more money. All right, B. Would you rather have negative $4 or $5? And what does this negative $4 mean? Well, this negative $4 means you owe the bank $4. And I don't like owing money. I'd rather have money than owe money. So, in this first one, you could own $4 or you could have $5. I would rather have $5 than owe $4. All right, let's look at the next one. Would you rather owe, because we've got this negative sign out here, would you rather owe the bank $15 or owe the bank $20? You would rather owe the bank, or I would rather owe the bank $15 because it's less money that you have to pay them. Okay, now that we're warmed up, let's talk about what these different things mean. There's some interesting things in here. Before we get started, we need to talk about some important signs. We've looked at these signs before. This sign here, the first one, looks like, if you make it with your hand, it would look like an L, which means that that one has to be less than. All right, the next one doesn't look like an L, so it would be greater than or more than. These next two are new. When a symbol has this line underneath, that means that it can either be less than or equal to. All right, this one is the other way, so this is more than or equal to. After you've gotten those written down, continue on to the next slide. Comparing and ordering integers. Okay, here's a number line down here. You've seen them before. I don't know if you've ever seen them with the negative, you've never seen them with the negative numbers before, but you should have seen number lines before. Number lines. Over here, we have 0 in the middle. As we go to the right, number lines keeps getting bigger or greater. So greater numbers are to the right. And the smaller numbers are all to the left. So the smallest or the least are on the left. So we have greater this way and least or less than or smaller to the left. So number lines go from smallest to largest. Let's look at the numbers down here. If we look at this number here, negative 1, and we compare it to this number here, negative 5, according to my number line, negative 5 is less than negative 1, which means that negative 5, even though it is a bigger number, 5 is a bigger number than 1, negative 5 is less than negative 1. Which is tricky because you see 5 and you think, oh, 5 is bigger than 1. So you have to be really careful with these. So the larger the negative number, the smaller it is. Let's do some examples down here. Which one, we're going to fill in with the less than or greater than sign. We have negative 5 and negative 4. Well, negative 5 is the larger negative number, which means it's smaller than, so I'll put my less than sign, the negative 4. All right, let's look at the next one. negative 19 and negative 3. Again, 19 is a lot bigger than 3, and as the negative number gets bigger, the smaller it is. So that means that negative 19 is less than negative 3. All right, one last example. We have negative 1001 and negative 1. Negative 1001 is a lot larger than negative 1. So that means that I'll use the less than symbol again. All right, we need to fill these in. What integer do you think is smaller, 10 or 7? To help you, think about it without looking at this, but then to help you, I've got a number line down here. I have plotted 7 and 10 on my number line. Now remember, numbers lines go from least to greatest, which means that my smaller number will be further to the left. That means that 7 is less than 10. All right, the next one. Negative 1 or 4. Which integer do you think is smaller? Here's your number line to help you. And now, because negative 1 is further this way, I know that negative 1 is less than 4. Last one here. I have negative 20 or negative 18, and it's plotted down here on my number line. Negative 20 is a bigger integer than negative 18. It's a bigger number, sorry, not integer, a bigger number. So that means that negative 20 is less than negative 18. Okay, now that we've done comparing integers, we need to talk about how to order them from least to greatest. What we're going to do is start with the biggest negative you can find. So let's look at our numbers here. Where is our largest negative number? I see negative 20 here, and there's no negative number that's bigger than that. So negative 20 will be our first one. That is our smallest integer, negative 20. The next smallest, so let's find the next biggest negative. It's negative 9 here, so next would be negative 9. Then we have negative 2, so our next integer would be negative 2. Then we have negative 1, so our next would be negative 1. Now we're out of negatives, so what should I put next? 0. We're going to put 0 next. Then we're going to put our 4. This part you know how to do. Then we have 9. Then we have 19. And then last, we have 20. All right, try doing the next one first, and then checking with my answer to see if you got it right. So pause the video or try it on your own, and then enter your answer into Educanon. All right, hopefully it went well for you. Our smallest number is our biggest negative. Our biggest negative we have here is negative 10. The next largest negative number we have is negative 8, so that's our next smallest. Then our next largest is negative 6. Then we have negative 3. And then we're out of negative numbers. Now we get to count upwards like normal. So next we have 1, 3, 4, and then lastly we have 9. This last example C you're going to try on your own. Enter your answer into Educanon to see how you did. That's all for now. I'll talk to you later.